When you look at the leaders in this world, when you look at the Trumps, and you look at the leaders in Brazil, and you look at the leaders in the UK, they're just manifestations of what is going on inside all of us. Hello Soul Surgery viewers, thank you so much for coming to watch this week's video. This week I wanted to dive in deeply to discuss what is really needed right now during this whole COVID-19 crisis. What is needed on an individual level and what is being called for on a collective level. How can we respond to this in a more empowered way? And how do we create the possibility of something new to come through? So the top 3 takeaways that you are going to get from today's video are taking the focus from the outsides of what is going on. The obsessiveness of trying to change the outsides of what is going on in life out there, but also in our own individual lives. And bringing the process inwards, bringing your focus inwards to change what is going on inside you. Number 2, power is not something that we need to find and that we need to make. It is something that we need to be able to allow through us. And how do we do that? And number 3, the greatest gift that we can give to this world is coming home to who we truly are. Because what happens inside of us impacts the collective as a whole. So let's begin. There has been a lot of noise going on in the last 8 weeks. Ever since this COVID-19 virus was declared a pandemic and took out almost every country on the globe and put us into lockdown, there has been so much noise as to what is really going on right now. I certainly personally have been diving deeply into researching and reading articles and watching documentaries and listening to scientists and doctors and seeing really clearly how the narrative that is being given to us in the mainstream media does not match what the numbers are. It does not match what these scientists and doctors are saying. And so very, very quickly, I was beginning to question what is really going on versus what is being told to us. Over the last few weeks, there has been a surge of people doing the same. Maybe you have been one of them. Certainly big influencers on social media have been sharing all about this. There has been a lot of talk about our need to be waking up right now. And I found myself in this conflicting place of being able to see really clearly that what is being told to us is not the truth of what is happening. And coming back to a place of continually questioning, what do I do with this knowledge and what is actually needed right now? And so I wanted to dive deeper into this conversation because I think this is a common experience that is happening all over. And I think we really need to talk about and look at the greater need right now. Certainly, it feels like the most powerful thing we can do is to find all the things outside of ourselves that are wrong, that are untruthful, that are conflicting, that are lies. And what that does is that triggers the parts that are unhealed inside of ourselves that need to find something that we can fix, that we can solve, that we can repair outside of ourselves to somehow prove that if we could just change these things, well then we would all be able to live a different life. But every time I kept coming back to the same seeing, doing it that way is just doing it the same way we've always been doing it, looking outside of ourselves to try and heal and fix what is happening on the inside. And so it just didn't feel right. It doesn't feel powerful enough. Whenever we feel the call to blame someone or something outside of ourselves, we are creating a deeper separation on this planet. And separation is already the greatest problem that is polarizing our race and our species. Every time we judge something outside of ourselves, every time we find something to get angry about, to want to fix outside of ourselves, every time we think that we are in some form of a battle that needs to be fought and that needs to be won, we are feeding the narrative of creating more separation on this planet. What is happening right now on a collective level is a manifestation of what is going on in the consciousness of our human species. When you look at the leaders in this world, when you look at the Trumps, and you look at the leaders in Brazil, and you look at the leaders in the UK, they're just manifestations of what is going on inside all of us. The greatest and hardest, but the most empowering healing is to stop focusing out there, giving us some false sense of power by finding all the things that are wrong, creating more judgment, blaming out there. If they change, then the world will be different. If we could just get rid of these leaders, then everything will feel better. If we could just change this, if we could just make them go to jail, well, then we'll all be able to live a bigger, better, more joyful life. But that is the greatest illusion of all. Thinking that we could just change these people, or if we could just find the right answer to what these untruths are, or if we could just put these certain people in jail, that will somehow wake up the consciousness of our species. That is not true. That's no different than thinking that we need to change our boyfriend because the relationship keeps triggering a feeling of unsatisfaction inside of us. It's no different of thinking that we need to change our bodies to somehow make us feel whole and worthwhile. It's no different to thinking, oh, if I could just change the job, well then somehow I'll show up as a different version of myself, more peaceful, more joyful, more happy. Everything that is happening on the outside of us is painfully a mirror to what is happening on the inside of all of us. That every time we judge, every time we think that we are better than, every time we go into more ego, every time we create more ego in ourselves and others, we are feeding more separation. And what we need right now as a species, on a collective level and also on an individual level, is more of what will bring us together, more of what will create wholeness, more of what will create healing and a rise in our consciousness. So the real work does not look like fighting a battle out there. It does not look like finding all the answers and getting it right. It does not look like exposing all the bad guys and being the good guys. The real work is how willing are we to look inside of ourselves, at the parts of ourselves that are being reflected back to us in the outside world. How willing are we to look inside of ourselves at the parts of ourselves that are narcissistic, that are self-centered and self-obsessive, the parts of ourselves that are judging, the parts of ourselves that want to be right or good or better than, the parts of ourselves that have fed of systems on this planet that have not contributed to the greater good. And to do this with the intention to create healing, not to create more separation, not to create more anger and pain, but to create wholeness. That every single one of us, on an individual level, is an integral part to the collective, to the whole. That when one human being is courageous enough to go inside themselves and look honestly at who they're being, look honestly at all the parts within them that is creating more separation and less wholeness, and are willing to heal on a deep, deep level, then that human being impacts and affects the entire collective. We are being called to live at a greater level of self-responsibility right now and accountability. That who we are affects the whole. That who we show up as impacts everything. That it's time for us to come out of this way of living thinking that the way that we are doesn't matter. That who we show up as doesn't affect anyone else but us. And start realizing that the space that we live in does impact. It impacts the people right next to us. It sends ripples and vibrations to everyone that comes into contact with us. And then those people send ripples and vibrations to everyone that contacts them. And we are all part of the whole. Now, it is useful and important to be educating ourselves right now, to be taking it into our own hands, to learn the facts, to learn what is truth and what is not truth, to be able to see more clearly about how our world works, but then to go inward and do the work, to heal, to release the judgments, to release the resentments, to transcend the fear, to look at every single part of our whole being and take ownership of where there is separation and where we want to create more separation and bring healing and love and wholeness there. Who we are is what changes this world, not what we do. Be the change. Be the change is the most powerful action of all. So if you are finding yourselves getting caught up in blaming or fear or anger or resentment or judgment, just like I have, just like I know lots of people have right now, use this not to beat yourself up, not to find more reasons why you're not good enough, but to look at where the judgments are coming from, to look at the impact of where that energy might be going, to look at the parts inside of yourselves that are creating more polarization and separation. And how much love can you bring there? How willing are you to go deeper and to heal? Because the truth is, who you really are is love. And everything else is just showing you where we need to keep working. So we are in a very, very difficult phase of transformation where things are breaking down. And part of the breaking down allows us individually to look at what we too can release and let go and dissolve and break down in order to create a space of something new. So I hope that you find this useful. I'm not saying don't educate yourselves. I'm not saying don't read, don't look, don't study, don't share, don't use your voice. I'm saying do those things. But please know that that is not the thing that is going to wake us up. Who we are is what wakes up the whole. We need to raise our consciousness individually and collectively, and that creates a whole world of healing. So I hope you find this useful. Thank you for listening. Please write in the comments below any big insights that come to you, anything that you see, anything that you find healing in. Just share with me. I love to hear from you and I will write back. And please do subscribe to Soul Surgery so that we can continue spreading this message and this work to as many people as we can. Thank you so much for watching.